Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the weekly landscape update video I do here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Zone 7B. This is a project that's been going on for a couple of years now, and things have really started to develop here, so feel free to subscribe to the channel and follow along. And I do these weekly updates, try to pick some things I haven't shown recently. And this week, I'm going to concentrate on some of the annuals. The annuals are really starting to fill in now. A lot of these were done from seed here at the house. It was kind of the theme of this season, was to do, vegetables, have been done from seed. Harvested potatoes that you're going to see in this video, some of the potatoes today, and a lot of the annuals were done from seed. Just trying to save money this year with everything going sky high. This grouping behind me is mostly Summer Jewels salvia, the pink and the white varieties. The pollinators absolutely go crazy for these, and then they're interspersed with this dark pink gomphrena, another thing the pollinators absolutely go crazy for. There's some celosia behind it. If you saw the annual planting video when I did this annual border, those are obviously meant to be taller than the things in front of them, and that's working out so far. There's some dahlias interspersed in here as well. Those are sometimes annuals, sometimes perennials here. Some I can do from seed. These were actually purchased named varieties, but everything else here you're looking at was done as inexpensively as possible in packs, in cell packs in the house. Perennials are behind it, and most of the perennials, because they're so newly planted, are smaller, so they're kind of hidden back there for now. Some of it will stretch up big and tall over the course of the summer. Some of it won't this year, and we'll wait for next year, but the agapanthus is looking pretty good. So I think this is filling in really, really nicely. It's covered in bees most of the day. Let's move to another spot.
If you remember, I'm Stephany, and I just want to talk about this area of the bed. We created a wonderful contrast between this Brigadoon St. John's wort and this Crystal Palace lobelia. The last couple of years, it's been kind of hard to find lobelia in 4-packs. So we opted to grow it from seed. They're very small seeds though, so if you're not super careful, it ends up in all your other seeds as well. And we learned the hard way a couple years ago. This year, it's beautiful, stayed where it needed to be, and creates this great contrast with the Brigadoon.
Started the video with the other side of the turf over there, over by the steps, by the screen porch. All the containers are filling in nicely. I think we're going to include the containers in next week's update video and just go through some of them, see how they're performing at this point. But I think they're filling in pretty nicely. On this side, the entryway to the steps here, there were New Guinea impatiens planted on both sides. We've done this 2 years in a row, and they just explode in this spot. This spot actually stays a little more wet. It's been dry this year, but if it does rain, you get any watering you do, this area does stay a little bit damp, and so they seem to really enjoy that. There are some pentas and some angelonia on each side going out from the New Guinea impatiens. That angelonia, you need to cut back during the growing season. The flowers open, and then they start to set seed behind it, and the flowers stay in place, and the pollinators just stop coming to them. And what's happened is the flowers just kind of passed by at that point. And so what I have found, if you just cut them in half midsummer, you get a whole new flush of flowers. Some of them haven't finished flowering yet. When I'm doing pruning on annual flowers back here, and it doesn't matter whether it's the annual salvias back there or the gomphrena, the angelonia, the pentas, whatever it is, we're not going to cut more than about a third at the time and leave the rest in place for the pollinators to be taken advantage of.
All right, so we've moved into the front garden, and we're going to take a look at sort of the sculpted area that we have put annuals and, again, put perennials behind. It has the potential to be a great space. The aim is to kind of have that clown college that Jim talks about. Unfortunately, the first thing that's blooming up a storm is gomphrena, which we grew from seed, and our aim was to have a pink. It was called pink, but as you can tell, hopefully you can tell, it has just a wee bit of pink in it, and it's mainly sort of a very faint blush pink. So not exactly what we wanted, but still beautiful, I suppose. And as the season goes on, we will have a lot more vibrant color, partly because of the ageratum that we have. It's starting to bloom, and it's interspersed throughout this arch. There are blue salvias, the annual, sometimes perennial salvia in the front, and they're sort of interspersed around. And we have two celosias. We have a taller, more pink one in the back, and then we have sort of a reddish with a gorgeous a reddish brown kind of foliage that really stands out. We do have some perennials that'll start to make a statement. We have some asters, and of course these gorgeous, gorgeous echinaceas, guara, and some other things. And of course, we do have the African basil. It can't be grown from seed, so you have to buy the plant, but one makes a huge statement and also makes a lot of pollinators super, super happy.
It's only June 20-something at this point, so we're not expecting these annual beds to be the best that they're going to be the whole summer. And here in Zone 7B in Raleigh, we're going to have these annuals in place until the middle of October, you know, before we would get the threat of any kind of frost. And so this is a long-term thing. You know, there's going to be months and months of these things blooming, and we'll cut them sometime, you know, probably end up cutting most of them a couple times between now and then. These impatiens are planted in a few places in the back area in our shady spaces, and they've really started to kick in here in the last week or so, and they'll really jump over the course of the summer. There are some begonias that actually came back from the winter. They died to the ground when we got our first freeze, and they came right back up, and so they've just been allowed to come back and get going, and they'll be very large by the end of the summer. But you can see a couple of these, couple little spots of them. There's a few weeds back here that need to be pulled. Here's another group of impatiens. And what we'll do, a lot of these things we'll do from seed, or if we can find inexpensive 4-packs or 6-packs, we'll purchase them and just fill in little holes here and there. Because one of the things about this project is the shrubs have been smaller than they're going to be in the future, and so there's a lot of holes still to fill in. So that's what those things are being used for. If we continue this way, there are some Terenia that have really jumped out of the gate pretty quick. They don't always do this, but these two plants have. Nothing really better for the pollinators than Terenia. You can find this in pink and purple. Sometimes they'll sit there for a while before they get going, but these are liking the space that they're in. Speaking of, you know, cool season, a cool season annual for us, typically snapdragons just kind of burn out in the summer, and we use them as winter annuals or late fall or early spring annuals, but they didn't get going until late. This little particular spot in front of the shed over here actually gets shady in the early afternoon, and so these snapdragons are just kind of positioned properly where I think they're just going to continue to bloom the rest of the summer. May give them a little bit of a haircut at some point to fill them out even more. A few things over here in the vegetable garden. Flipped over the first of the potato bags today. The foliage had died back on 5 or 6 of the bags. I still have 6 bags to go. I'm going to wait another week and a half or 2 and let the rest of this foliage die back. But the other ones had, and got a lot of potatoes out of them. They had not been the best. It had not been the best season for the top growth for me at all on them. So I was not expecting those first few bags to have very many in them, but they were great. So I'm really optimistic about this group that have grown, you know, bigger and fuller. They're starting to fade at this point. One thing I get to sit out here and watch right now is as these dahlias fade throughout this garden, seed is being set, and the goldfinches are just over here constantly. A big group of goldfinches. They were on the Verbena bonariensis in the front garden. They picked the seed off of it. It looked like they still had flowers on it, but they had already picked it over. So that got cut back. That moved them back here to the backyard for the dahlia seed. Over here in the vegetable garden, the peppers are jumping as you would expect when it gets hot in midsummer. That's their favorite time of the year. Got zucchini looking good over there. Beans are doing their thing. Cucumbers are doing their thing. I have my first tomatoes. This is Bronze Torch. I've shown this several times the last couple years. This is my absolute favorite tomato. It's a great size. They're pretty crack resistant. I'll typically get them when they're about this color. If you wait, just like any other tomato, there's a balancing act. If you go too far out, you know, they are more subject to cracking. This tomato, let me break this thing open for you, just so you can see. Just so you can see as I'm crushing this with my fingers as I'm opening it. You can see this thing is just the most incredibly juicy tomato. You just wouldn't think of a tomato being this size and being that, you know, being that juicy. It's just an amazing tomato. Okay, the zinnias are really in full show out here. These are giant zinnias. We'll see some others in just a minute, but the bees are just absolutely all over these all afternoon. There's so many interesting varieties in this mix. I think I put it up on the screen a couple, 2 or 3 weeks ago when I showed them for the first time. They are underplanted with some lantana, which I've mentioned too many times probably, but the lantana, as these fade later in the summer, the lantana will take over this the bed, and the lantana has actually already reached the top of them at this point. But the bees are absolutely loving all of these zinnias, and so am I. They're just all super interesting, green colors and oranges and kind of reddish burgundy colors in this mix. The annual swoosh out toward the front fits the Clown College theme that I like to have out here a little better than the other areas so far. Again, it's only June 20th, and by August, you know, all these annual beds will be full. This one has definitely jumped out ahead. The melon podium on the corner, 2 seasons ago, we got a much more yellow melon podium than this one. This one's kind of it's yellow, but it's a lighter yellow color. The other yellow one, melon podium, will seed itself, and so the other yellow one comes up here and there, and where it comes up, we will actually get the seed on that one. I've not been able to find it since, and it's just a much darker or brighter yellow than this one. This one's nice, and you can see the amount of flowers on it. But again, melon podium will seed itself, so be careful. You know, if you're, you know, so will the celosia right here. Well, the bee, I just got that bee to move accidentally, but the celosia will as well. Then there's several different zinnias, the profusion zinnias in here. Lots of different colors on those. There's some coleus in here, but the swoosh area definitely represents the Clown College approach to landscaping that I like. This video has been mostly about annuals and the vegetable garden back there, but there are a few shrubs that are really starting to show off. This is moon dance hydrangea. This is a hydrangea paniculata. These will take the full sun. This one's literally sitting out in the full sun. It's still, you know, I'm 6:30 in the evening and it's still in the sun. At 7:30 this morning, it was in the sun. So this thing is really cooking all day long. So you can see the kind of abuse it will take. This is one of Buddy Lee's introductions, who invented Encore azaleas. White Wedding is as well. I'm really starting to be more and more drawn to Moon Dance. Most of the marketing has been behind White Wedding, but this one also has just incredibly thick stems on it. And so what does that mean, Jim? Well, what that means is it holds the flowers up big and tall. And if you had any hydrangea paniculatas flop on you, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm just amazed at how sturdy the stems are on this thing. I mean, I really am, you know, trying to flex it here, and it's just kind of amazing. So when this thing gets into full bloom here over the next few weeks, where I would normally be worried, you know, in a rain or heavy wind event, I'm not going to be worried about this thing at all, because it's going to definitely hold them up big and tall. So we'll see over the next couple weeks how this one really starts to put on a show. There are lots of vinca planted here and there throughout the landscape in lots of different colors. This little section of kind of a whitish pale pink have really filled in. Annual vinca like this can be a little slow to get started growing. This group has definitely jumped out ahead of some of the other colors in the landscape.
Last year, this white wedding hydrangea needed to be transplanted out of the backyard into wherever we wanted to put it. So all winter it stayed in just a pot with not even all that much soil on top of it. That's the beauty of this plant. At the end of the winter, one day I decided I'm just going to put it at the end of the driveway because I thought it would be beautiful. And you know what? It is. It's almost in full bloom after horrendous conditions. It's perfect where it is now. And right here, we have another plant we did from seed. It's supposed to be called Italian white sunflowers. They're a tall sunflower, small flowers, but they're supposed to be sort of white with a yellow center. I love the yellow. It's wonderful. I'm not complaining, but I think there's not a whole lot of white in it, but it is perfect behind Jim's fence that he made. And we have two areas of the Italian white sunflowers, and in between we have Tithonia. It's a Mexican sunflower. It'll grow a little bit above his fence eventually. Right now it's not quite there yet. Has vibrant orange flowers that are wonderful for pollinators and just on fire. So I'm looking forward to them peeking over the ledge of the fence and just making a huge show.
Although it's not quite in full flower, I thought I would show you the Butterfly Towers white butterfly bush that's out here by the road. There's only about 2 feet between this fence and the curb that's below my feet here. And so this butterfly bush is very, it just grows completely and totally vertical. It's absolutely amazing. It's not quite in full bloom. I've shown this thing several times, but it is amazing to me because I cut it back hard and I wanted to see if that would start to make it kind of, start to spread out some over, maybe a year or two. But every single branch just has come back completely vertical or fastigiate. It has a fastigiate habit. And it's amazing. A lot of times I think this wide angle lens can present this space a little wider than it is, but this is 0.19 acres, and this butterfly bush is sitting in a maybe 3x2 space, and it's about 6.5 feet tall at this point. So again, I just wanted to show you this Butterfly Tower series. I think is going to be super, super, super popular, and really this white variety is amazing. So thank you guys for following along with these weekly landscape update videos. I think we'll cover the containers next week. There was a container planting video, and it was part of my let's save some money philosophy this year. And so a lot of the containers had things that I had rooted or divided or gotten a piece from a neighbor or literally dug out of the ground. And so we'll take a look at those next week. Thanks for watching.